Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Sentence to Be a Hero, episode 4. I'm going to give a quick recap of the plot, tell you some things I liked about it, some things I didn't particularly care for, and at the end of the review, I'll give it a score out of 10. So, in this episode of Sentence to Be a Hero, the episode opens with Xylo and the goddess Terada discussing how they are taking a new road since they were not allowed on the old road due to their hero status. We find out that it is a road that are not that are a lot of people are taking due to the festival that's going on. I think this is a really good setup for future events of the episode. We find out that it is a fortress that they are heading to, which is protected by sheer walls and the like due to natural terrain. We then cut to the very next day where the festival is taking place, where there is some sort of flea market going on. We also find out it is the Great Exchange Festival, which will play an important role in future episodes. When the character Vanim, who is now part of the main cast of characters, is talking to Dada, we also learn that heroes are very rarely given rest days and are given only on occasion. And when they are given rest days, they are only done in cages, as they are as mentioned before, heroes are criminals in this universe, which is I think is a very nice detail, very nice little addition to world building. When the goddess comes to talk to Xylo in the cell, we learn of a game called Zig, a game similar to chess where a goddess explains the rules, which are very similar to chess, which was invented by the royal family of Met, which again is a very cool world building detail. I really like the world building going on so far in the episode. We also learn that Xyler likes to read poetry in his free time and prefers not to be disturbed, which does lead to a lot of interesting comedy. Which, other than the opening act, the first part of this episode goes for the more comedic route, which I believe works really well to balance out the second half, which is a lot more lore heavy. There are also a lot of small world building elements that give the world a very unique identity. As mentioned before, the Zig game, but there's also things like the book is made from, such as the fact that one of the books that they have is made from a drunk poet who in his later years wishes or dreams he can become a dragon. Again, very cool world building. I really like this. I really like the world building they're putting into this world. It's really unique. Captain Kivia enters the room and firstly tells Xylo that he is getting punished, which will be important later. And then tells Xylo to come to the festival for his next mission, to which the goddess agrees to come with by saying that the captain will also be there. So I must be allowed, which is a really funny bit. Xylo says I must be allowed. And we also see the goddess attracted to candy, to which he says it did not exist in her time, which of course gives her curiosity as to what the candy tastes like and all that stuff. Which world building, again, very, very cool with the world building. We also learn of a tree called Mituli's ice cream or Mituli's cream. I think this is Mituli's cream, which is popular in the first capital, where shaved ice is put on top of whipped cream and then sprinkled with honey and nuts. Again, very cool detail. The captain also says the favorite flavor is exquisite, and a bear is their mascot. The payment for items in the exchange is script, which is like this world equivalent to silver or copper. Basically, their currency, if you want to think of it like that, just their currency in this universe. We then cut to what is implied a few hours later, since they don't actually say it. We learn that Captain Kivia might reevaluate Xylo's sentence due to the fact that he saved her men at the Z1 Gan town, which is the town in the previous episode. We also learn of Terrada's backstory, how she was founded in northern ruins, and how the 13th Order of the Holy Knights, assigned to pact with her, were dispatched to handle oversight and operations. When conflict soon arose between the military and the temple, which is all Xylo's fault, because he killed the goddess Minerva, which gave the military an idea if a goddess can be killed, maybe we can make more goddesses. So the military wanted to dissect the goddess Terada, trying to find out how to make more goddesses. Goddesses exactly. To which the temple opposed it, but the military won regardless. Captain Kivia also states that Xylo's squad is very powerful due to the fact they took out two demon lords and showed how useful Terada really was, which Xylo explains with how she was used before, which is a clever detail into how the audience might be thinking. I believe it is a very clever detail. Then the captain goes on to explain how they knew her power was to summon swords, which was found in the ruins where she was found, We then learn how goddesses first came to the Holy Knights in the First War of Subjugation, which is called the Great Civilized Era, which is like very reminiscent of like real history, but like taken in such a way where like it has its own spin on it, which I think is very cool. We also learn that the goddesses act as a gate, with each one having a different nature. One can produce poisons, one can call down lightning and rage storms, one can see the future, and they all awaken in response to demon lights. And when they finish, they return to sleep in their coffins. Very cool detail. We also learned that one of the goddesses brought Tetsuo from another world too, and then it was judged that Terada's powers were weaker than the other goddesses, which was the reason for her dissection, which the Holy Knights felt bad for what they did. So they wanted to atone for their mistakes by fighting demon lords and fairies, which is what we've been seeing for the entire series up to this point. I really like one thing I will say is I really like the lore that's presented here. It really gives more depth to Terada's character while simultaneously answering a lot of questions we've had about goddesses and how many there are, while providing new information that can be expanded upon in future episodes. It is a very nice backstory, and I'm glad they included it. Makes Terada's journey more interesting, and just the entire series more interesting. Makes Captain Kivia more nuanced as a character. We did, and then we cut to Silo, then ask for his next mission. That way, the can prove her usefulness, which is a defense mission to protect the fortress even to death from demon blight by themselves. We then learn that it is a death mission, to where they must lure the 15th demon blight Ilias, so that the ninth goddess, the poison one, can perform her magic, which will kill the demon blight. And they cannot leave the fortress, otherwise they will die from the sacred seals on their necks. However, it is only a death mission if the entire unit leaves at the same time due to Venium's negotiations. There's also this funny bit where Venium asks Xylo what else over and over, which might sound repetitive, but it doesn't stay for too long. Stay for too long. And then we also learn how Venium also saved the world once, to which we cut to his backstory and how he was trying to sell his palace for the circus. We also learn that he became a con man because he hated seeing people disappointed and even tried to make it all consistent. We also learn that he wrote a third-page article which says spies under the influence of demon blight, pretending to be human, have infiltrated the temple. Gautuli and even the royal family, which was written to invoke fear in the populace, and he got the seal, which has a special feature but is not revealed because he can tell the most outrageous things and get away with it as everyone believes him. He is a con man through and through. He lies about his who he really is, what he's done. This episode basically explains that he's a con man, which I think is really interesting. The backstory of Venom does a good job of setting up the future events to come. We then come back to the present where we learn that the pardon was not approved, to which we then learn of a new character called Sav, who doesn't like seeing bad people get away with bad things. The episode ends with him cutting off someone's hand and him saying he's hungry, which does a great job of showing what kind of character he is and what kind of character we're going to be dealing with in future episodes. It is also noteworthy that the intro plays at the end of the episode, likely because they didn't have time to put in the beginning of the episode. Overall, I feel like this is a very lore heavy episode. Probably the most lore heavy episode since episode 1. You finally learn about the goddess's backstory, how there is more than one goddess, the new fortress which holds the great exchange festival, a lot of world building elements along with some comedic elements. Vin- Vinium set up for a backstory, and we finally saw Venom's backstory a little bit. Venitum, I think that's his name, and we finally see a new character called Sav. I don't think it'll be as entertaining as episode 3 due to the fact that it is more lore heavy and dialogue heavy than before. But I should recommend it as it provides more context for future and past events and gives a lot of insight into old and new characters. However, it is kind of a little bit of a slow burner. I think in future episodes they probably will expand upon like the Holy Knights and why like they felt bad. Because it was kind of explained in episode 4, but I feel like it could have been done a little bit better. Still a really good episode, though. I would highly recommend it just for expand expansion of characters that we already know. That's it.